The story begins with the legend of destruction caused by humanity. When 400 years ago, civilization was at the peak of prosperity, but their hearts were filled with deceit and hatred that created darkness. Humans tried to use the power of darkness to erase war, but darkness saw the nature of the world created by humans and declared that the time for punishment had come, to free the world from the darkness within humans. The darkness created by human power itself pushed them to the brink of extinction. But at that moment a massive pillar of light pierced through the earth. A dragon-like being with enormous wings and a human figure holding a great sword appeared. The dragon and the darkness recognized each other as enemies and charged into a fateful battle. The fierce fight shook the earth, causing many continents to sink into the sea and millions of people to die. In the end, the dragon won and the battle became a legend. Over time, the exact legend was forgotten. 400 years later, in the kingdom of Medalicana on the central continent, a violent attack was taking place. A figure in a dark cloak named Osborne, the summoner of monsters, led an army of creatures roaring that Medalicana would belong to him. On the city walls, the guards tried to hold their ground. A commanding soldier ordered his men to stand firm because the enemy was attacking when the king, the knights, and the high priest were all absent. The monsters quickly broke through the gate and the commander ordered his soldiers to stop them from advancing further. Osborne rode on horseback and commanded the monsters to trample the defending soldiers. Inside the castle, the remaining soldiers rushed toward the church, determined to protect Princess Sheila Tool Medalicana at all costs. Inside the church, Princess Sheila stood among the ministers. An elder reassured her that she was safe here and begged her to wait a little longer. Sheila asked who the rebels were, and the elder explained that they were followers of the evil sorcerer who had died, Schneider, now calling themselves the Dark Rebel Army. In another corner of the castle, a boy named Lucian was crying in fear. A large soldier grabbed him and yelled at him to let go. At that moment, a young red-haired girl named Yoko appeared and asked what Lucian was doing. Lucian sobbed and told Yoko that he was scared and wanted to run away. Yoko scolded him for being a coward, told him to stop crying, and used her handkerchief to wipe his face. Lucian thanked her and said he had dirtied her handkerchief and would wash it. Yoko said it was fine and asked for it back. But Lucian ran off and Yoko called out for him to stop. In the church, the soldiers reported that the enemy's forces were large and would soon reach them. Yoko was holding the trembling Lucian. She recalled her father's words, High Priest Gionoto Soto, who had taught her a secret spell. He explained that it had the power to release a being sealed by divine power, a dangerous spell. So she must not use it unless he was absent and the kingdom was in danger. Casting this spell would awaken the second personality sealed inside Lucian. Yoko had been shocked upon hearing this. Her father explained that it was the reincarnated embodiment of the ancient dark sorcerer Schneider. When the seal was broken, the Dark Schneider would awaken and use powerful magic to defeat the enemy. However, for the spell to take effect, it required a maiden's kiss. Gio emphasized that Yoko must always remain pure. Returning to the present, Yoko shook off the thought, believing it to be a foolish story. Lucian once again offered to go wash Yoko's handkerchief, but she told him to stay still. The boy tried to run but bumped into the large soldier from before. He grabbed Lucian and called him a useless piece of trash. Yoko immediately intervened, demanding he not harm Lucian and introducing herself as Yoko, Lucian's guardian. The soldier recognized her as the high priest's daughter. Yoko turned to scold Lucian for crying just because he was threatened, calling him a coward and asking if he was a boy or not. Lucian muttered that he wasn't angry. Yoko recalled a memory of Lucian getting food on his face. She thought that perhaps his gentleness was a strength. In the church, the desperate soldiers watched the enemy approach, lamenting that they were doomed. Princess Sheila also appeared terrified. Lucian fearfully hid behind Yoko. Yoko admitted that she was also scared. She stepped in front of Princess Sheila and introduced herself. Sheila knelt down, saying she had once heard her father speak of a legendary sorcerer sealed somewhere within the kingdom. She asked Yoko if that was true, and if it was, she begged Yoko to release that power immediately. Yoko panicked and refused, saying that such a thing was embarrassing, and she could not do it. A minister was surprised and asked, "Embarrassing how?" At that moment, Osborne and his monsters broke down the doors and stormed inside. He laughed loudly, declaring that he had found Sheila and would finish her right away. Yoko spread her arms to shield the princess, shouting that she would not allow it. Unexpectedly, the ministers standing beside Sheila turned and begged Osborne, reminding him that he had promised to let them live. They had sent him the information so he could launch a successful surprise attack. The loyal old minister was shocked to realize the others were traitors. Osborne praised them for doing well, But immediately afterward, two gigantic figures appeared behind them and smashed the traitors to pieces with their clubs. The remaining soldiers were horrified. Osborne ordered the giants to kill everyone. Lucian screamed for Yoko to watch out as one of the giants swung its club to attack. Yoko pushed Lucian away, both of them falling to the floor. Lucian was wounded on the head. Yoko looked at the chaos, the soldiers being slaughtered and the injured Lucian. She felt desperate, telling the fading Lucian that she knew he was scared. She was terrified too. This was her first time, but she accepted it. She began chanting the spell, in the name of Inomata, the beloved goddess of beauty. She requested the seal to open. Then she leaned down and kissed Lucian. A violent surge of dark energy exploded from Lucian's body, making everyone around, including Sheila and Osborne, question what was happening. The energy enveloped Lucian, transforming his body. Yoko remembered her father's words that the second personality, the reincarnated embodiment of the ancient sorcerer Schneider the Dark, would awaken. When the light faded, a tall, muscular man with long white hair stood there. It was Dark Schneider. He laughed loudly, declaring that he was finally resurrected. He cursed the damn high priest who used a forbidden reincarnation spell to find him and seal him inside a child. He swore he would kill that old man. Osborne, not understanding what was happening, ordered the two golems to attack. Dark Schneider shouted for him to shut up and cast an explosive spell, creating a massive blast that instantly destroyed both golems. Osborne was shocked, muttering that only the most elite sorcerers could use that spell and wondering who that man was. Yoko hesitantly asked if he was really Lucian. Schneider turned back, confirming, "Yes, Yak, we grew up together. You are the one who awakened him." He used magic to create a cloak. Osborne was horrified to realize he could even use ancient reconstruction magic. Yoko asked if that meant he was no longer Lucian, but the evil ancient sorcerer Dark Schneider. Dark Schneider confirmed he was the reincarnated embodiment of Schneider the Dark, but also Lucian. Her friend, Sheila, whispered the name Schneider the Dark, remembering her father saying that 15 years ago he was the one who started the Golem War that spread everywhere. Prince Lars of the Five Heroes fought him to the death. It was said that as he was about to die, Schneider the Dark used a forbidden reincarnation spell, and her elder brother died because of that battle. That man was the legendary sorcerer. The loyal old minister immediately begged Dark Schneider to defeat the enemy, but Schneider turned away, saying he didn't want to. Yoko was stunned and asked why. Schneider explained that Yoko had always sided with him, letting him do whatever he wanted, so he would save only her. The rest would die here. The ministers were horrified. Schneider made it clear that they owed him, but he owed them nothing. Yoko angrily interrupted, calling him a cheap good for nothing, a monkey, a cold-blooded bastard, asking if that was really who he was. Schneider held his head and lamented that he was done for, that he wasn't her friend. Sheila said that now the two of us are strangers. Schneider finally gave in, muttering fine. After all, he owed her a lot. He agreed that he would save them. Yoko cheered and ran to hug him tightly, encouraging him. Osborne roared in fury, telling them to stop babbling. He declared that his army had been chosen by the Great One to annihilate the kingdom of Metalacana along with him. With the strongest spell in the world, lightning began striking down upon the castle. The old minister realized all the energy was being gathered here. Osborne began chanting, calling out, "O murderer, O lightning born from the shadowed mist of Bomber." Schneider sneered, asking, "Oh, a lightning spell, huh?" He mocked that it was pointless. Osborne screamed madly die and unleashed the move Balvolt. A massive bolt of lightning struck Dark Schneider directly, but he merely stood there absorbing it, then stated that this spell only helped polish him. Yoko worriedly called Lucian's name. Dark Schneider had already appeared behind Osborne without anyone noticing. Osborne turned and swung his spiked mace, but Schneider easily caught it, warning him not to scratch his supreme face. He declared he would kill Osborne and began chanting a complex spell. "O hellfire burning within the shadowed mist, become the sword that slays my enemy." Venom. An enormous fiery explosion engulfed Osborne, incinerating him completely. The remaining soldiers cheered in victory. The old minister thanked Princess Sheila. Sheila admitted his power was overwhelmingly mighty. Truly the ancient sorcerer, Schneider the Dark. Yoko called his name. Schneider walked past and ignored Princess Sheila as she thanked him. Yoko scolded him for daring to ignore Princess Sheila, but Schneider pulled her close, asking didn't she have anything to say personally. Yoko blushed, stammering thank you. Schneider scoffed, asking is that all? Yoko slapped his hand away, saying that now the villains were gone. Wasn't it time for him to turn back into Lucian? Schneider turned his back and walked out of the church, leaving the castle. Yoko hurried after him, asking where he was going. He replied that he had things to do, When she asked what things, he said he would tell only her. First, he would take revenge on her father for sealing him. Then he would start a war to conquer the entire world. Yoko was horrified and called him a demon, Schneider said, but he would spare her as promised. He placed his hand on Yoko's cheek. Yoko felt her heart racing and wondered why. Was this magic? Schneider denied it, saying he hadn't used any charm spell. Yoko directly asked Lucian, "Do you like me?" He replied, "Hate you. You're always ordering me around." Then he pulled her in and kissed her. When he let go, Yoko stood frozen. Right then a ring of magical light wrapped around Schneider. He realized Yoko had done something and screamed as his body shrank, transforming back into the boy Lucian. Lucian woke up confused, asking Yoko. Yoko realized it and wondered could the kiss of a virgin also be the spell to reseal him. Lucian asked where the monsters went. Yoko lied that they had gone somewhere else. Lucian cheered that it was great, then said he was hungry and invited Yoko to go home with him. Yoko smiled and agreed. In the kingdom of Judas, a report was made that Osborne's army had been completely wiped out during the invasion of Metallicana. A sorcerer had defeated Osborne with the venom spell. A white-haired man on horseback heard this, muttering that it was impossible. Venom died along with Schneider the Dark on that day, 15 years ago. Meanwhile, Gara and Lars, the white-haired man riding with the army, discussed the news of Osborne's defeat. Gara was doubtful since Osborne had lived for more than 200 years, but the report clearly stated that the sorcerer who defeated Osborne used the venom spell. Gara was stunned because only one person could use that spell, the one who vanished 15 years ago. The knight in armor confirmed that it was Dark Schneider. Lars decided they had to verify this person's identity. A cloaked man named Abigail suggested sending Kevadub, a Hydra summoner, ahead. Gara agreed that if that sorcerer defeated Kevadub, then he was truly the real one. Meanwhile, Yoko experienced a nightmare. She saw herself in a field of flowers with Dark Schneider naked. He called to her and embraced her. Yoko, confused, wondered if this was a dream. But Schneider denied it, pointing to the corpse of her father Gio and the monsters surrounding him. Yoko screamed in terror and woke up in her bedroom. She saw Lucian sleeping next to her and felt embarrassed for having brought the boy to her room after the incident the previous day. The next morning, while having breakfast, Yoko scolded Lucian for not chewing properly. Then she looked outside and saw strange black clouds rising from the direction of Judas Castle. Feeling a bad omen, her father, the high priest Gionodo Soto, appeared and also recognized the bad sign. He immediately took the two children to the castle. In the throne room, a soldier rushed in reporting that Judas Castle had fallen. The king was killed by an army of monsters led by a sorcerer, and a division was advancing toward Metallicana. The king of Metallicana was extremely worried. Gio explained that the increased activity of monsters was a sign of the resurrection of the evil god Anthrasax. At that moment, a guard reported that the Hydra serpent was attacking the east gate, on top of the tower. Kevajubu ordered the Hydra to attack. He wanted to see the face of the sorcerer who defeated Osborne. The ministers panicked, realizing that only Schneider could save them. They begged Yoko to release him. Yoko fiercely refused. She did not want to release that cruel, perverted man. Gio persuaded his daughter, saying that they only had defensive magic and needed Schneider's offensive power. Yoko reluctantly agreed. She told Lucian to close his eyes and then kissed him. Dark Schneider immediately resurrected. Once again in a naked state, he stretched. Yoko asked him to go fight, but Schneider refused. He declared he wanted to kill Gio first to take revenge. He blocked the escape path of the king and Princess Sheila, put on a cloak and faced Gio, calling him one of the 5 heroes who sealed him. Schneider cast the lightning spell Balvolt, but Gio managed to use the spell Alel Namu Raben to create a holy spirit shield that completely blocked the attack. Gio explained that this shield nullified all magic. Schneider angrily switched to close combat, but Gio easily dodged. Realizing he could not win with magic, Schneider decided to use the golem he had hidden beneath the castle 15 years earlier. He used blood to draw a magic circle and summon the giant golem. Gio was horrified, realizing his shield could not block a physical attack weighing millions of tons from the golem. At that moment, Kevajubu appeared, standing on the Hydra. He introduced himself as Kal Su's disciple. Schneider, insulted by Kevajubu's appearance, called him widow's hair and catfish mouth, ordering the golem to attack. The golem easily crushed the Hydra and smashed Kevajubu away, enraged that the golem had been dirtied. Schneider used the spell Venom, incinerating Kevajubu and the Hydra. After the battle, Yoko ran to hug Schneider, crying and demanding he return Lucian. Schneider explained that he and Lucian were one soul, sharing life and love. Whoever Lucian loves, I also love the same. Knowing she did not believe him, he kissed Yoko. The kiss immediately activated the seal. turning him back into Lucian and causing him to faint. Right after Dark Schneider was sealed back into Lucian by Yoko, Yoko happily hugged the boy, while the king and Princess Sheila confirmed that he was definitely the legendary sorcerer. Outside the castle, Gaara, one of the 4 heavenly kings, observed from afar with a ninja army. He confirmed the enemy had used the venom spell, proving Schneider had truly resurrected. Gaara recalled how 15 years earlier he had followed Schneider to conquer the world and wondered why Schneider now protected the kingdom. He ordered the ninja to investigate the reason, declaring that if Schneider stood in his way, Gaara would personally kill him. Gaara and his army then attacked a group of guards. Gaara drew the Murasama sword and unleashed a demonic slash, creating a whirlwind that sliced the guards to pieces instantly. In the throne room, the high priest Geo explained to the king and Princess Sheila about the black clouds covering the sky. It was a sign that the destructive evil god Anthrasax was awakening after the first seal at Judas Castle had been broken. The mastermind was Khal Su, Schneider's former disciple and close friend. Meanwhile, in an underground shrine, Abigail was performing a ritual. He felt the heartbeat of the evil god and planned to attack Metallicana, where the next seal was kept, to fully release Anthrasax. Facing the danger, the ministers begged Yoko to summon Schneider once more, but she angrily refused. She did not want to use Lucian as a tool. When returning home, Yoko tossed and turned because of the nightmare and her conflicting emotions. Lucian tried to comfort her by transforming into cat ears and a tail, then promised he would never turn into Schneider again. That night, Gaara broke into Yoko's bedroom. Yoko tried to resist with a kick, but was easily restrained and tied up by Gaara. Gaara interrogated her about how to undo Schneider's seal. When Yoko refused to answer, Gaara began tearing her nightgown. At that moment, Lucian, who was sleeping, suddenly shouted in Schneider's voice, "Stop, she is my woman." Gaara was horrified realizing Schneider was sealed inside the boy. Schneider, still in Lucian's form, explained that the seal had weakened. Just as Geo and his disciples rushed in, Gaara immediately grabbed Yoko, jumped onto a wyvern dragon waiting outside and flew away, declaring he would interrogate her at the ninja fortress. In the throne room, as the ministers were desperate because no one could break the seal, Princess Sheila bravely volunteered to do it. Despite the king's objections, Sheila insisted she had also learned white magic and was ready to sacrifice herself. She approached Lucian and explained that Gaara had kidnapped Yoko. Sheila recited a spell in the name of Inomata and kissed Lucian. Dark Schneider resurrected again in a blue flash of light, naked. He became confused by the strange scent. Afterward, Geo and the ministers begged Schneider to rescue Yoko and defeat the 4 heavenly kings. Schneider initially refused. Sheila angrily scolded him as an ungrateful and heartless man. Schneider snapped, declaring that after conquering the world, he wanted every woman including Yoko or Sheila. Then he grabbed Sheila and kissed her roughly. Sheila slapped him, calling him a greedy bastard and expressing her disappointment. Schneider, enraged and embarrassed, cursed and stormed off. Meanwhile, Gaara brought Yoko to his fortress and began interrogating her. Gaara was questioning Yoko, now chained in a pit inside the ninja fortress, and he demanded she reveal the method to unseal Dark Schneider. But Yoko refused. Gaara mocked her, asking whether she loved Schneider, then revealed Schneider's past, saying he had lived 400 years and had hundreds of women, and that one of the 4 heavenly kings was also once his lover. Meanwhile, Dark Schneider, Princess Sheila, and the Knights of Metallicana arrived at the Valley of Graves. Sheila insisted on accompanying Schneider. Schneider mocked the seriousness of the knights, causing Sheila to scold him as a coward because Yoko was in danger. At that moment, a group of ninjas launched an ambush attack, and while the knights struggled to protect Sheila, Schneider easily wiped them out with a light bullet spell. He complained that Sheila was getting in the way, ordering her to remove her armor and weapons, and after hesitating, Sheila obeyed, keeping only a thin inner layer of clothing. Back in the prison chamber, Gaara continued psychologically tormenting Yoko. He summoned a special slime, ordering it to dissolve Yoko's clothes, and the creature advanced, restraining her and slowly melting her dress. At the same time, Schneider's group reached the main gate of the fortress, and ignoring Sheila's suggestion, Schneider decided to use a massive explosion to break the gate. Gaara heard the explosion. He realized Schneider had arrived, but decided to let him die inside the fortress's deadly underground labyrinth. While he continued watching the slime torment Yoko, the young girl could only scream helplessly, crying out Schneider's and Lucian's names. Inside the maze, Schneider's group was blocked by a giant minotaur monster. Schneider discovered a ladder leading upward. He pushed Sheila out of the monster's attack path and held her, then ordered the knights to stay and hold off the minotaur as bait. The knights at first objected, but Schneider provoked their courage, causing them to decide to sacrifice themselves to protect the princess. And Schneider immediately lifted Sheila over his shoulder and climbed the ladder. When they were about to escape, they were attacked by a flying one-eyed monster named Suzuki Dojizimon. Schneider tried to use Anthem, but the spell was reflected, causing him to be slightly injured in the shoulder. He realized the monster's barrier weakened when it attacked, and he seized the opportunity to use the spell Sodom to destroy it. After escaping the labyrinth, Schneider began to feel exhausted because he had used too much magic. Sheila realized he was truly worried about Yoko, but was trying to hide it, but Schneider denied it. When Sheila became exhausted, he once again carried her on his shoulder, and they entered a room containing a cursed red sword. Schneider recognized it was a trap, but it was too late. He collapsed, realizing the wound from the reflected Anthem had been poisoned by the sword. He ordered Sheila to suck the poison out of the wound on his hip immediately. Sheila was at first horrified and embarrassed, but seeing Schneider in pain, she decided to obey, knelt down and began sucking the poison. And while she was doing so, the cursed sword suddenly ignited and released a fire demon god, who declared he would kill those who awakened him, plunging Sheila into despair. When the fire demon god emerged from the sword, Dark Schneider and Sheila immediately faced him. Efreet attacked with a wall of flames, causing Schneider, who was already affected by the poison, to have his vision blurred. Meanwhile, in the prison chamber, Gaara explained to Yoko the 4 types of magic. He concluded that since Efreet was a fire spirit, Schneider's strongest fire spell Hellion would be completely useless. Even empowering the fire god, Gaara predicted Schneider would surely lose. Returning to the battle, Schneider struggled in the 1,000-degree sea of flames. When Sheila suggested using an ice spell, Schneider confessed he did not know that magic because Kal Su was the true master of ice arts, mocked by Efreet. Schneider became enraged and decided to use Hellion anyway, declaring that his spell burned hotter than 2,000 degrees. He created a heart of fire barrier to protect Sheila, then unleashed the spell. Efreet also countered with Hellion. Between the 2 blazing streams, Schneider secretly chanted an ancient spell, and Efreet realized too late that it was Exodus, a forbidden spell targeting the core of a spirit. Schneider absorbed all of Efreet's heat, combined it with his own power and released Exodus, creating a 20,000-degree explosion that incinerated the fire demon god. Efreet, defeated for the first time in 300 years, returned to the fire sword. The sword accepted Schneider as its new master. Schneider took it and broke through the wall toward Gaara, who was holding Yoko. Gaara noticed Schneider was exhausted and poisoned. But when Schneider saw Yoko, he erupted in fury, roaring at Gaara asking what he had done to her. Gaara recognized Schneider's rage and decided to exploit it. Gaara ordered the ninja soldiers to step back, declaring he would finish Schneider in 5 minutes, then drew the Mirasama. When Schneider attempted to chant, Gaara unleashed Demon God's sword, a slash of compressed air at extreme speed, sending Schneider flying. The 2 continued exchanging attacks. Sheila ran to shield Yoko. Gaara mocked that Schneider had lost all his mana, was poisoned, and was now obsessed with saving Yoko. To provoke him further, Gaara began describing in detail how he had used the slime to strip Yoko and admire her body. These words drove Schneider insane with anger. Seeing this, Gaara prepared to unleash his ultimate technique, Salvation Esoteric Mystery, the true demon god sword. At the same time, Schneider gathered all his remaining strength into the spell Venom. The 2 ultimate attacks collided, creating an explosion that destroyed the entire fortress. Gaara was shocked that Schneider could block a supersonic attack with one hand. When Gaara attempted to finish Schneider, he realized his beloved dragon Lars had disappeared. But fortunately, he found Sheila holding Lars. She had used a barrier to protect it. Seeing his pet was safe, Gaara admitted defeat. Yoko and Sheila rushed to Schneider. Yoko thanked him and called him cool. Schneider tried to hug her, but she punched him and scolded him as a pervert. Suddenly, the ninja soldiers arrived reporting that Metallicana was under attack. The dragon Lars suddenly spoke, shocking Schneider. Meanwhile, Kal Su was watching a magical orb showing Metallicana Castle. He confidently declared that the second seal would soon belong to him. But right after that, Abigail arrived to report that the ninja fortress in the Valley of Graves had collapsed and that Gaara had betrayed the 4 heavenly kings. Kal Su at first rejected it, refusing to believe that Gaara, a righteous warrior, would betray them. But then he concluded that there must be some kind of connection between Gaara and Dark Schneider that caused Gaara to change. Recalling the scene of Schneider teasing Gaara naked in the past, Kal Su ordered Abigail to inform the 3rd Legion that was attacking Metallicana, and at the same time summoned another of the 4 heavenly kings, Arsh's Knee. the strongest magic swordswoman in the world, ordering her to eliminate Schneider. Meanwhile, at Metallicana Castle, the knights were struggling to fight against an army of monsters and orcs, and the high priest reported to the king that they were holding out but suggested negotiating for peace. The king angrily rejected it because the enemy was Khal Su's army. At that moment, a massive lightning strike destroyed part of the castle wall, and the high priest recognized it as the magic of one of the 4 heavenly kings, Arsha's Ni. Outside, Ni was standing on a cliff with her army. She had just killed a peace envoy from Metallicana, declaring that the law of war was to win and live or lose and be destroyed. After that, a blonde female warrior named Sean Ari reported to Ni that Khal Su had ordered her to kill Schneider because there was news he had been revived. Then inside her tent, Ni removed her helmet, revealing that she was a dark elf. Receiving another report from Sean Ari confirming that Gara truly had betrayed them, Ni quietly pondered Gara's actions. Then she lay on her bed thinking about Schneider and the mission to kill him, and she drifted into an illusion, seeing herself in a lush green forest, the place where she met Schneider for the first time. The flashback showed Schneider finding her when she was a lost child, and he had raised her for 100 years. He approached Ni within the illusion, using flirtatious words and pulling her into his arms, saying that he loved her, telling her not to resist. But Ni angrily called him a monster and pushed him away. She remembered how he had created an entire harem behind her back, and in her rage she unleashed a Balvolt strike on him. This lightning attack burst out of the illusion and destroyed Ni's entire tent in reality. Sean Ari rushed in, and Ni, still furious, ordered Sean Ari to go kill Schneider in her place. Elsewhere, Schneider was traveling with the dragon Lars. Schneider complained about Ni sending assassins after him. Lars teased that 15 years ago Schneider had been madly in love with Ni, but Schneider denied it, saying that dark elves and dark magic were a terrible combination. At that moment they heard cries for help from a woman being chased by a giant spider. Lars warned that the spider looked strange, but Schneider immediately used the fire spell Voivod to burn it and save the woman. And when she thanked Schneider, Lars noticed a talisman that had just fallen from the spider. Schneider picked it up, realizing it was spellcraft and a type of ancient magic. He realized the summoner was nearby, and the woman smiled, inviting Schneider and Lars to her home to rest. Schneider immediately agreed, making Lars exasperated. At the house, Schneider devoured a grand feast, saying he needed energy for magic. And when Lars reminded him about his crude eating manners, Schneider kicked the dragon away. At that moment Schneider suddenly remembered Yoko scolding the boy Lucian for not chewing properly. He felt a brief sadness, then brushed it off, thinking it was just a family matter. That night Schneider lay on the bed, and the woman walked in wearing a nightgown. She said that according to her family tradition, she had to offer her purity to the benefactor who saved her life. Schneider was extremely excited by this tradition and leaped onto the bed, despite Lars screaming that it was a trap. As Schneider kissed the woman's neck, he noticed bruises left by armor and immediately discovered a spider talisman stuck on his back. Immediately a giant spider monster crawled out of the talisman, grabbing Schneider, and the woman revealed herself to be Sean Ari, one of the 3 demon commanders. She explained that the talisman had the ability to nullify magic and ordered the spider to swallow Schneider's corpse. The spider grabbed Schneider and swallowed him whole. Sean Ari happily declared victory. However, Schneider suddenly appeared back on the bed completely unharmed. He mocked Sean Ari, revealing that the spider was only an illusion. He had known it was a trap from the beginning, and he asked what spell she had used and when she had placed the talisman on him. He said that he had seen the bruises left by her armor, but still pretended to fall for the trap because she was very cute. Sean Ari remembered that Ni had also said Schneider was the first person to call her cute, and in a shared illusion, Schneider had comforted Sean Ari while she cried, returning to reality. Schneider said that Sean Ari did not have the killing intent like Ni and warned her that another assassin was waiting outside. He told her to leave. Sean Ari tried to attack, but Schneider easily blocked her, touched her face and made her faint. Then Schneider and Lars left. Sean Ari woke up crying because Schneider had spared her. Meanwhile at Ni's camp, she received the report about Sean Ari's failure and became enraged because Schneider had seduced yet another girl, calling him the enemy of all virgins. As Schneider and Lars continued traveling, Lars reminded him about the attack on Metallicana, but Schneider brushed it off and Lars suddenly noticed strange stone statues, warning that the next enemy was Medusa. Immediately, a blue-haired warrior named Kai Harn, also one of the 3 demon commanders, appeared on a cliff declaring she had come to kill Schneider under Ni's orders. Schneider mocked the new enemy as a pretty boy. Schneider mocked Kai Harn, Kai declared she would kill Schneider under Arsh's orders. Schneider continued teasing Kai as a pretty boy, leading to an argument with Lars about which of the two was more handsome. He even asked the nearby orc monsters for their opinion. Angered at being called similar, Schneider kicked Lars away and used the impellatory spell to burn all the enemies. After that, Schneider and Kai faced each other. Kai attacked with the demon-style sword technique 100 violent slashes, but Schneider realized it was only an illusion and dodged it. Lars identified it as the sword art of the theory-breaking fist master. Schneider began provoking Kai by asking about her comrade Sean Ari. When Kai became angry, Schneider kept teasing, saying he had tasted Sean Ari and she was delicious. Kai went berserk, calling Schneider a disgusting bastard, and lunged to attack. Schneider blocked with the flame sword, and the force of the clash shattered Kai's armor, revealing she was actually a woman. Schneider was extremely shocked. Kai angrily declared that gender did not matter and unleashed her trump card, Ancient Magic. Kai chanted a petrification spell and Schneider's body began turning into stone. Schneider began to panic because he realized he did not know which ancient god he needed to negotiate with to undo the curse. When Kai prepared to deliver the finishing move Dio, a talisman spider suddenly appeared and blocked the attack. Sean Ari revealed herself and stood to protect Schneider. Kai was shocked by her comrade's betrayal. Sean explained that Schneider possessed a mysterious power surpassing even Call Su and Ni, and she believed this very power was what convinced Gara to follow him. Determined to protect Schneider, Sean summoned 4 talisman spiders to attack Kai, but Kai easily destroyed them. When Kai prepared to kill both of them, Sean shielded Schneider and begged Kai to spare his life. At that moment, Schneider laughed loudly and broke free from the stone. He revealed he had only pretended to be caught. The spell Kai used from the god Y came from a low-level deity with whom Schneider already had a contract. Schneider mocked Kai and unleashed the rainbow spell, defeating her but intentionally holding back. Enraged at being spared, Kai summoned the Cicatrice, the source of the stone statues. The Cicatrice spewed petrification gas. Schneider dodged and realized the gas was not from ancient magic. When the Cicatrice attacked again, Schneider pulled Sean away and his hand took the full blast of the gas and began turning to stone. At the same time, Kai's control crystal shattered, causing the Cicatrice to lose control and go berserk. Schneider used an explosion spell to destroy the creature. Kai, defeated, asked Schneider to kill her, but he refused. He lifted her up, causing Kai to blush and feel her heart race. Schneider then set her down and declared that he needed to suck out the petrification poison from her body. Then he bent down and sucked it from her stomach. After finishing the treatment, Schneider and Lars left. That night, Schneider suddenly weakened because he had used too much magic power, causing Lucian's seal to strengthen. He reverted back into the boy Lucian, who woke up confused and called out for Yoko. Meanwhile, at Metallicana Castle, Ni's army was about to break the final gate. But Gara suddenly appeared with a dark ninja legion of 2,000 men, declaring he had come to help. Lucian and the dragon Lars got lost in the forest. After wandering for a while, Lucian found Yoko bathing under a waterfall. He happily recognized her and ran to her. Soon after, the escorting knights also appeared. Then they gathered at the campsite. She saw Lucian sleeping beside her. The knights apologized for frightening her. Yoko reassured them and explained that Lucian was the legendary Dark Schneider and the dragon was Lars. Yoko defended Gara, saying that although Gara was perverted, he was not a bad person. A knight then recounted the legend of the Great War 15 years ago, when Prince Lars ul Metallicana, one of the 5 heroes, used a forbidden spell to transform into a legendary dragon and fought alongside Lord Geo, Yoko's father, to defeat Dark Schneider. They speculated that this dragon might actually be the reincarnated prince. Meanwhile, in a dark castle, Count Diamond, a vampire, sat on his throne. He was informed that 2 of the 3 demon commanders had failed before Schneider. The subordinate Giotto brought in a group of virgin maidens he had captured. Diamond declared he needed their blood to increase his power, to surpass even Arsh's Ni and Call Su. However, Diamond discovered one girl was no longer a virgin. He became enraged at Giotto's deception and used his vampire power to drain Giotto's blood, killing him instantly. At the same time, in another forest, a werewolf subordinate of Diamond was preparing to eat 3 girls he had just captured. But at Yoko's campsite, she sensed an evil demonic aura. Immediately the werewolf appeared. He smelled Yoko's virgin scent and decided to eat her instead of the others. The knights tried to protect her, but were knocked away. Lucian stepped forward, but his voice had transformed into Schneider's, commanding the werewolf not to touch Yoko. Yoko realized Schneider was controlling Lucian's body. The werewolf mocked Schneider for being in the form of a child and attacked. Yoko panicked, knowing Lucian's body couldn't withstand the blow. However, Schneider used sheer willpower to block the attack, calling the werewolf a filthy mutt. When the werewolf tried to crush him, Schneider chanted the venom spell and burned the werewolf. He lay gravely wounded on the ground. Schneider interrogated him and learned that his master was Count Diamond, a vampire. Schneider deduced that Diamond was plotting to overthrow Call Su and Ni. Afterward, Yoko scolded Schneider for disappearing after the battle at the ninja fortress. Lars explained that Schneider had not fully revived. He was sealed inside Lucian and could only appear when Lucian was asleep. From above, Diamond sensed this and ordered his forces to attack the campsite and capture Lucian. Yoko and Lucian were captured and taken to Diamond's castle, where Lucian was locked inside a cage. Yoko, Sean Ari, and Kai Harn were also captured and tied before the throne. Diamond mocked Sean and Kai's betrayal, then killed a subordinate for doubting his plan. Diamond declared that he was a true vampire, immortal, and would drink the blood of all 3 virgins to become the strongest. Sean and Kai immediately coordinated an attack. Sean used the charm spell, Lei Sin Tich Nhi letter 1 EC7 Tvu, and Kai used the sword technique, Long Kich La Sot Tr letter 1 E3M, creating a huge explosion. However, Diamond emerged untouched, his body regenerating instantly. He mocked them, saying vampires were immortal. Even garlic and crosses were useless. He grabbed Kai and began sucking her blood. Sean and Yoko looked on in horror, but Kai suddenly smiled, saying Diamond was in her illusion. Lars explained that the seal between Schneider and Lucian was extremely complex. When Lucian was conscious, Schneider was sealed, and vice versa. 15 years ago, Geo had sealed Schneider's soul, at that time an infant, into Lucian's body, causing the 2 souls to coexist. At Count Diamond's castle, where Yoko, Sean Ari, and Kai Harn were tied up and Lucian was locked in a cage, Diamond mocked the injured Kai and declared he would kill Dark Schneider, then call Su and Ni. Suddenly, Lucian in the cage glowed violently, screaming as the 2 personalities struggled for control. The blue light exploded, breaking the cage and transferring them to Metallicana Castle, where Gaara and his 2,000 ninjas were fighting Ni's orc army. The Metallicana Knights were astonished by the ninjas' power. Gaara fought while throwing shuriken to eliminate numerous enemies, muttering that he owed Schneider and had to clean up this mess. Back in Diamond's throne room, after the explosion, Dark Schneider appeared in his adult form. Diamond was shocked that Schneider had broken the seal by himself without the Virgin's kiss. Schneider was furious, declaring Diamond had made a mistake daring to touch his girls, especially attacking Yoko. Schneider summoned the demon Prince Tanamor and cast the lightning spell Riot. Diamond easily blocked it, explaining that vampires could resist ice and lightning magic, showing off his immortal body. He mocked Schneider and fired blood-draining destruction beams from his eyes. The attack unexpectedly severed Schneider's arm. Diamond and his minions celebrated. As the minions approached the girls, Sean tried the spell La Sin Tich Nhi letter 1 EC7 Tvu, but they were immune. However, Schneider suddenly laughed, mocking Diamond as crude. Enraged at being insulted, Diamond fired blood-draining destruction beams from multiple directions, personally annihilating all his minions. While Schneider and the girls were unharmed, Schneider declared the rules of battle. Ugly, muscular villains never defeat handsome heroes. He effortlessly created a shield to reflect Diamond's laser beams, then grabbed one, absorbed it, and threw it back. The attack pierced Diamond's chest, breaking the wall behind, exposing the vampire to sunlight and reducing him to ashes. Lars cheered the victory, but Schneider warned it wasn't over. The ashes reformed into a giant bat, which attacked, but Schneider easily punched it down, explaining that vampires could regenerate from ashes after 2 days unless the ashes were scattered. Schneider summoned a green claw beetle and cast the forbidden spell Accused, explaining the beetle would cling to Diamond. If Diamond obeyed, it remained green, but if he betrayed, it would turn red, causing his body to shatter and be permanently reborn as a mindless creature. The bat begged in terror and Schneider transformed it into a toad. Sean ran to hug Schneider in thanks, but Yoko interjected. Schneider introduced Yoko as the woman who would bear his child, making Yoko angry and deny it. Sean questioned Yoko about Schneider in bed, causing her embarrassment, and she slapped Schneider, transferring to Metallicana, where Gaara was slaughtering the orc army with his magic sword. Finally, at the temple, Call Su and Abigail observed Diamond's defeat. Call Su revealed he had used a bat to place the forbidden spell Accused on Arsha's knee to ensure her loyalty. Call Su and Abigail discussed Ni's mission. Abigail explained the Accused spell he placed on Ni, supported by an ancient evil spirit, which monitored her loyalty. If Ni failed to kill Dark Schneider or betrayed, the green claw on her finger would turn purple, then red, eventually killing her. Ni accepted the curse, declaring she would kill both Schneider and Gara regardless of the spell. Abigail sneered that it would be a waste to turn such a beauty into a toad. After Nee left, Call Sue and Abigail continued planning, while observing the initial revival stage of the evil god Anthrasax. Call Sue expressed confusion over Schneider's actions, the man he once knew as a cold-blooded demon, now sparing Gara and the 3 demon commanders. It seemed Schneider had changed after 15 years, and Call Sue, Schneider's old friend, wondered what had caused this change. Abigail affirmed that Schneider was the greatest threat to their ideal of a perfect sorcerer society kingdom without war or discrimination, and that Schneider must be eliminated. Abigail then revealed an important detail about the accused spell that Schneider also knew, that the only way to break the curse was to use a special catalyst, the fresh heart of the cursed person themselves, which pushed Nee and Schneider into a life or death situation. If Nee wanted to live, she had to rip out Schneider's heart, and if Schneider wanted to save Nee, he had to kill himself. At a farm, Schneider said goodbye to Sean Ari, who was preparing to leave by carriage. He hugged her and reminded her to be careful because her destination was near the Metallicana battlefield. Yoko witnessed this and urged him to go to Metallicana. Meanwhile, at the bridge leading to the castle, Gara and his wyvern dragon were slaughtering the orc army. At that moment, Arsha's knee landed on her griffin and confronted Gara. She questioned the reason Gara betrayed the 4 divine kings. Gara mocked that Schneider's side was more fun. Nee angrily called Gara a traitor and charged in. Gara and Nee fought fiercely. Nee accused Gara of being deceived by Schneider. Gara continued provoking her, saying that she was the one who actually wanted to return to Schneider. Nee drew the Thunder God Sword, a legendary demon blade, and overwhelmed Gara's Murasame. Gara used illusion to evade Nee's Dragon Fang Rakshasa Slash, then used the 7-body split ring spell to create 7 clones. Gara removed his armor and all 7 bodies unleashed the ultimate true demon god Slash, an attack faster than sound. However, Nee identified the real body and blocked the attack with the Thunder God Sword. But Gara's power shattered her blade. Gara declared victory, but spared her life because he knew she was important to Schneider. Nee grew furious at the insult, calling Gara a fool who betrayed their ideals. She fired the light bullet spell, but Gara easily cut it apart. Nee, in a frenzy, charged with her broken sword using the Overlord Thunder Strike Slash. Just as Gara prepared to counter, a massive explosion erupted between them, blasting both away. When the dust cleared, both Gara and Nee were shocked to see Dark Schneider had arrived, standing on a gargoyle statue on the other side of the broken bridge. He mocked that they had caused a disaster to Metallicana by destroying the main gate. At Metallicana Castle, Princess Sheila and High Priest Gio witnessed the explosion. Gio recognized it was Schneider and was astonished he still possessed such powerful magic. On the ramparts, Yoko and Lars had also just arrived. Schneider turned to Yoko explaining he was testing a new spell called Halloween. Gara from the other side of the broken bridge angrily shouted not to test magic on him, calling Schneider a monster and vowing revenge. Schneider then turned to provoke Nee, mocking that she looked like an enemy. Yoko realized that was Nee, one of the 4 divine kings. When Nee saw Yoko, she immediately asked Schneider if that was his new beauty. She sank into painful memories of the past, remembering how Schneider always flirted with countless women while she waited for him. She suppressed her emotions, declaring that today everything would end and she would finish his life. Schneider suddenly teleported behind Nee and embraced her, causing Yoko to recoil in horror. He whispered in Nee's ear asking why his adopted daughter was acting this way and said he loved her. He began licking her neck, triggering an illusion of their intimate moments. Nee panicked and sweated, shouting no, and Schneider mocked that he knew all her weak points, while Gara lay groaning from his wounds. Schneider softly told Nee that they had been together for 100 years and she was the one he loved most. Nee burst into tears, calling his name Darsh. At the same time in the dark shrine, Abigail observed Nee's accused cursed claw turning from green to purple. He explained to Call Sue that the curse was progressing. If Nee softened, the claw would turn red, her body would shatter and her soul transformed into a miserable toad. Back at the bridge, Nee regained her composure and scolded Schneider as filthy, declaring his caresses could not manipulate her. She jumped onto the griffin, declaring withdrawal to restore her army, promising that next time would be the end for Schneider and Metallicana, then flew away. Then, in a room within the castle, Schneider visited Gara, who was being bandaged by Yoko. Schneider mocked Gara's pitiful appearance. Gara warned Schneider not to underestimate Nee, admitting that she was much stronger than 15 years ago. In the castle dining hall, Yoko was serving soup to the soldiers. Schneider approached, and Yoko, still angry over Schneider's intimacy with Nee, only ladled a tiny portion of soup for him. Schneider complained, and Yoko, furious, scolded him to use magic to make his own food, pointing at Schneider and calling him a lecher, reminding him of how he had fondled Nee in front of everyone. Schneider awkwardly admitted he had done it many times, causing the surrounding soldiers to laugh. Schneider tried to justify himself, but then bent down, buried his face in Yoko's skirt, and sniffed, declaring that Yoko, as a maiden still pure, he could tell by the scent. Yoko was extremely embarrassed and angry, slapped Schneider hard, called him worthless, and stormed off. In a dark room, Gio and Princess Sheila communicated with a prophet through a crystal ball, requesting her to examine the seal on Schneider. Gio reported that Schneider had broken the seal through his own will while fighting the 3 Demon Path members. The prophet was astonished, confirming Schneider was stronger than 15 years ago. She explained that this seal was created by the goddess of love, Inomata, and thus could not be broken by an evil person. It could only be undone if the person had love and was good, capable of persuading the goddess. Sheila realized the prophet was implying Schneider's feelings for Yoko. Suddenly the prophet saw a terrifying image in the crystal, Schneider's heart torn apart and him dead. In Gaara's room, Yoko was changing his bandages. Gaara explained that in high-level magic battles, when 2 sources of the same type like Schneider and Nee collide, if one is weaker, that person would explode and die. Yoko, worried, left thinking Schneider could die. She went to Schneider's room and was shocked to see Schneider embracing Princess Sheila on the bed. A few hours earlier, Sheila had come to Schneider's room, embarrassed to learn that Schneider and Nee had been lovers, pleading with him to stop fighting. Schneider sneered, reminding her that his goal was to conquer the world and swore to kill anyone in his way, even Call Sue or Anthracax. Schneider then moved to attack Sheila, pushing her onto the bed and whispering that she was his. Sheila desperately begged Schneider to stop, saying she was willing to give her body if he wanted, just not to go to Nee. Yoko, eavesdropping outside, realized that Sheila truly loved Schneider. Meanwhile, outside the castle during a storm, Nee performed a ritual, calling the Thunder God's sword to reincarnate and casting the Megadeth spell, creating a massive column of energy shooting straight into the sky. Meanwhile, Schneider, holding Lars, was thrown by Yoko and felt the ancient elements stir. In the storm, Schneider, Yoko, Sheila, and Lars stood atop the castle walls. Looking at the destroyed bridge, Schneider confirmed Nee had used the Megadeth spell. Sheila, terrified, reminded him of the prophecy and begged Schneider not to fight. Yoko also asked whether he could really fight his daughter and former lover. Schneider ignored her, turned to Yoko, and asked to borrow 500 yen. After receiving the coin, he promised to return it, then ordered Yoko and Sheila to escape, saying he had to go alone because he was the target. At that moment, Nee descended on her griffin, declaring she would take Schneider's life. Schneider mocked the ungrateful girl, saying he would punish her. Nee's Thunder God sword had fully regenerated. Gaara and his ninja observed from below. Schneider cast the Tantang spell to fly and summoned his raven armor. Nee flew up to confront him, immediately using an ancient spell that Schneider did not recognize, Def Leopard. A gigantic lightning sphere appeared. Nee explained that it absorbed all surrounding magic and linked to higher dimensional space to nullify all of Schneider's spells. Schneider tried to resist, but his magic was drained, causing him to fall into the rubble below. Gaara realized Nee had switched to sword combat, a disadvantageous tactic for Schneider, who was primarily a mage. Nee dove down and unleashed the dragon spear lightning slash to finish Schneider. But just before the tip of the sword struck, the Efreet flame magic sword automatically appeared to block the attack. Efreet roared, proclaiming itself the guardian of the flame sword and would protect its master. Nee recognized Efreet, while Schneider cursed it as an interfering demon. Nee angrily attacked Efreet, and her griffin lunged with its claws. But Schneider used Efreet to slice it in half, causing it to explode. Schneider immediately reappeared from the rubble unharmed, explaining he hadn't expected Nee to possess the flame sword, and revealed that her Thunder God sword was guarded by the Thunder Beast Nu, Efreet's arch-rival. Efreet reappeared behind Schneider, ready for a battle between 2 legendary spirits. Gaara was astonished to learn that the Flame Sword and Thunder God Sword were opposing legendary magic swords. Gaara explained that if they clashed their magic, one or both would be destroyed. As both prepared their ultimate attacks, Schneider suddenly froze, seeing images of Lucian, Yoko, and Sheila in his mind. Sensing hesitation, Nee immediately unleashed the Overlord Sword Lightning Slash. Gaara shouted warnings to Schneider, but Schneider and Nee collided, creating a cataclysmic explosion. Within the blinding light, Efreet told Schneider that it was precisely his hesitation and compassion that the world needed. Then Efreet and Nu clashed and self-destructed. The Thunder God sword was thrown into the Death Leopard sphere. Schneider screamed in horror. Ni reminded them they were still fighting. Schneider, distracted, was struck in the head by Ni. Blood gushing from his eyes as he collapsed, Ni declared victory. Claiming she had killed him, Yoko and Sheila screamed in despair. But Gara explained that the Death Leopard sphere had vanished due to Ifrit's sacrifice and Schneider's barrier had recovered. Though he was still bleeding from his eyes, he slowly stood and roared that Ni was no longer his daughter, and he would kill her like an enemy. Both of them cast the Tiantang and Riot spells. Clashing in a fierce lightning battle, Gara realized they were evenly matched, and finally, both Schneider and Ni began casting the ultimate spell Exodus. Gara realized Ni also knew the forbidden spell and shouted that if the two spells collided, all would be destroyed. In the final moment, Schneider saw Yoko, Ni saw young Schneider, and both shouted Exodus in unison. A white explosion engulfed the entire area. Schneider was blown away. Gara concluded that Schneider had lost because hesitation in his emotions caused him to cast slower. Ni stepped out of the rubble, calling Schneider a fool. Gara shouted at Dark Schneider not to die, while Yoko and Princess Sheila looked on in horror. From within the smoke, Dark Schneider emerged, his body shrouded in a radiant golden aura. He laughed arrogantly, declaring he was still standing, mocking those around him as weaklings, proclaiming himself the divinely chosen handsome hero on a completely different level. Ni approached Schneider, who was now exhausted, kneeling with blood streaming from his eyes. Gara realized Schneider was merely trying to appear strong. Ni coldly declared Schneider was spent, and she would kill him now to achieve their ideal society. However, Schneider looked up, laughed, and said Ni could not kill him, then suddenly declared, "I love you," repeating his love. Leaving Ni stunned, she shouted for him to shut up and rejected his love, beginning to cast the Gilbert spell, summoning millions of lightning spirits from a darkened heaven. Gara realized this was a spirit summoning, a dangerous technique because if the caster lost focus, the spirits could attack the summoner. Not to be outdone, Schneider cast his own spell, summoning the solar fire spirit Tafala. Gara was once again shocked, knowing that only fire spirits could counter lightning spirits. The two armies of spirits collided, creating a fierce aerial battle of light. Schneider flew up, berating Ni that her ideal society was just a dirty plan of Khal Su, arguing that war and hatred were the nature of humanity and that eternal peace could never be achieved. Schneider's words shook Ni's mind, plunging her into painful memories of her past as a half-dark fairy, ostracized and bullied by both humans and fairies, abandoned by her tribe when war broke out, wandering alone across a field of death until Schneider found and took her in. Returning to the present, Schneider flew beside Ni, gently asking if she had forgotten, reminding her how she clutched his cloak as a child, and that 100 years later she had lived peacefully beside him like a father and daughter. Ni burst into tears, calling out Darsh. Schneider hugged and kissed her, immediately triggering an illusion of them in an intimate space, shocking Ni, who screamed and pushed him away with a bolt of lightning, sending him flying. Meanwhile, in the dark temple, Abigail watched gleefully through a crystal sphere, reporting to Khal Su that Ni's accused curse nail had turned purple. A sign of betrayal, Abigail explained that the more Ni opened her heart to Schneider, the tighter the curse would grip, and if her nails turned red, her body would be torn apart and her soul transformed into a miserable frog. Khal Su coldly said he didn't care. If Ni died, he would personally kill Schneider. Abigail continued her monologue, revealing that the only way for Ni to lift the accused curse was to kill Schneider and rip his heart from his body. On the battlefield, Schneider fell to the ground. Ni regained her cold demeanor, saying she had only almost faltered at his trickery, calling him a man who exploits women. She unleashed the Hellhound Thunder Strike to finish him, recalling that he always said she was no longer his daughter and that he loved her whenever they fought. When she was a child, crying and apologizing to Schneider, he had comforted and hugged her. Returning to the present, Ni told the faltering Schneider that he was the most important person to her. Yoko sensed that Schneider's evil aura had disappeared, but Ni's hesitation caused her to lose control, and Gara realized the lightning spirits had gone berserk, turning on the nearest targets, Yoko and Sheila. As the spirits were about to strike, Schneider shouted "Yoko" and blocked the attack, leaving Yoko and Sheila slightly injured but safe. Now the lightning spirits attacked their own master. Ni was struck and fell, her accused nail flashing purple. She desperately realized she could not kill Schneider. Seeing Ni hesitate and Yoko threatened, Schneider erupted in rage, roaring that even if it was her, Arsh's, he would not forgive anyone who harmed Yoko. focusing a massive fire sphere. While Ni concentrated all her lightning, both prepared to unleash the ultimate Halloween spell. Gaara and Geo realized they were about to annihilate each other. Both shouted the spell names, and the streams of fire and lightning collided. Gaara witnessed that Schneider's power was slightly superior, and Ni was about to be blown away. Within the blinding light, Ni accepted death. Her nail turned red. She only had time to think of Darsh before disappearing. In the moment of impact, Schneider saw an illusion of Lucian, who revealed the truth. Ni had acted out of love, choosing death by his hand rather than the accused curse. Realizing Abigail's plot, Schneider roared, "That bastard! What have you done to my beloved girl?" A massive column of light shot straight into the sky, and when the light cleared, Gaara realized Schneider had teleported the explosion elsewhere. In the smoke, Ni was kneeling, crying, and in front of her stood Dark Schneider. Ni asked if he was in pain. Looking at his injured hand, Schneider said, "Now I will set you free." Raising his hand, Ni closed her eyes to await death, but suddenly blood spurted out, and Ni looked up in shock as Schneider had plunged his hand through his own chest and pulled out his heart. Just as the prophecy had foretold, Gaara and Yoko screamed in horror. Schneider collapsed as blood poured from his body. Ni looked at the heart in her hands as it dissolved, and her accused curse nail shattered as well, freeing her from the curse, and a beam of blue light erupted. At Metallicana Castle, High Priest Geo recognized it as an ancient evil spirit and realized that Ni had been imprisoned by a powerful curse. Gaara stood at a distance, bitterly telling his ninjas that Schneider had dug out his own heart to free Ni, calling him a fool for not being a hero of justice. Ni, in despair, clutched Schneider's body and wailed, and at dawn at Metallicana Castle, Geo confirmed to the king that the prophecy of Schneider's death had come true. Yoko collapsed, recalling her memories with both Lucian and Schneider. In the Dark Temple, Abigail laughed gleefully, holding a sphere containing the seal he had just obtained, declaring that the undefeated legend had ended and mocking Schneider for being drowned in emotion, claiming there was nothing left to fear and ordering his army to rest. Dark Schneider. Meanwhile, in the icy kingdom of Wido's Niki, Prince Cavadale lamented being cornered by Khal-Su, as his 100 mages could not break Khal-Su's ice magic, when suddenly Khal-Su appeared outside, casting the spell Biscaya to unleash a massive ice storm that instantly froze the kingdom and its army. Khal-Su's subordinate reported that they had obtained 2 of the 4 seals. In another kingdom, Alan Maide, flames roared as Abigail's corrupt army slaughtered the populace. Abigail, observing through a sphere, bragged that his army grew stronger with each corpse. The undead swarmed the palace, killing the king. Abigail declared that they had obtained 3 seals: Judas, Wido's Niki, Alan Maide, and only the final seal in Metallicana remained, ordering his entire undead army to march toward Metallicana. Back at Metallicana, Ni, exhausted, had slept beside Schneider's body for 3 days, now placed in a room. Yoko entered, desperately looking at Lucian, telling him they had to fight on their own, whispering to him that he still owed her 500 yen, then bending down to kiss him, hoping the virgin's kiss would work. But nothing happened. As Yoko left, Lars approached Lucian's body, monologuing that it had searched for the legendary Dragon Knight for 15 years, the only one capable of facing evil, and believed that it was Schneider. Suddenly Lucian's body glowed fiercely and transformed back into red-haired Dark Schneider, motionless. At the temple, Khal-Su and Abigail stood before the heart seal of the dark god Anthrasax. Abigail reported that the first broken seal had restored 30% of Anthrasax's power, and now with the second and third seals Wido's Niki and Alan Maide placed, the god's mobility would be almost fully restored. Khal-Su confirmed the 4th seal in Metallicana controlled the god's mind. Abigail revealed she had found the final lock and ordered the resurrection ritual to begin. Outside Metallicana Castle, a massive undead army led by a demon-armored commander named Lynch advanced. Gaara and Ni stood atop the walls. Ni suggested using the Megadeth or Halloween spells, but Gaara refused due to lack of conditions. Lynch, a near-immortal warrior, was confirmed by Gaara to be extremely dangerous, his power amplified by Anthrasax's awakening. Meanwhile, the king of Metallicana revealed the final secret to Sheila, that the 4th seal was not a material object but a spiritual entity hidden within something close to her. Sheila looked down at her necklace. Khal-Su and Abigail began the ritual to break the 2 seals, and a massive dark energy shot directly into Anthrasax's body, causing the beast to roar. A tremendous energy blast also struck Metallicana. Lars and Geo sensed an intense light emanating from Schneider's room. Yoko ran toward it, her instincts alerting her. She rushed into the room where Geo and the other priests witnessed an unbelievable sight. Schneider's body was floating, and his heart was reconstructing itself from the air right within his chest. At Metallicana Castle, High Priest Geo realized this was the resurrection ritual Schneider had prepared 15 years ago. Atop the walls, Gara and Ni faced off against Lynch, Gara wielding the demon god sword and Ni using Riot. But both attacks were nullified by Lynch's demon armor. Lynch mocked them and unleashed the devastating strike. Gara pushed Ni out to take the full blast himself, falling with severe injuries, declaring that he could not let a beautiful woman like Ni die in vain. As Lynch prepared to finish them both, in the resurrection chamber, Yoko desperately performed CPR on Schneider and kissed him again. Lucian's body exploded in light, and Dark Schneider fully resurrected, immediately lifting Yoko, greeting her, and declaring he would skip school. Yoko, both embarrassed and relieved, called him outrageous. Schneider smiled, claiming he was the supremely handsome hero, saying Yoko was about to cry and offering a passionate kiss, but warned it would revert him back to Lucian. So he decided to postpone ruining Yoko's life. Though as soon as he spoke, Yoko smacked him on the head, and Schneider yelled in pain. Shifting to the Metallicana walls, the massive undead army was closing in. The dwarf mage Doshi stood above, ordering Commander Lynch to eliminate Ni and Gara. Doshi mocked Ni and Gara's feelings, calling them fools for daring to oppose Lord Abigail. Below, a severely injured Gara and Ni rose, preparing for the final battle. Doshi explained that Lynch was created from the 100 strongest warrior corpses, equipped with legendary demon armor capable of resisting all magic granted by Abigail himself. Gara unleashed the demon god sword and Ni used the supreme Bai Hong sword Thunder Strike. Both attacks collided directly with Lynch, but had no effect. Lynch swung his weapon, sending Gara and Ni flying. Doshi laughed, boasting that the demon armor absorbed dark energy from the awakening Anthrasax, making it invincible. As Lynch raised his weapon to finish Ni and Doshi ordered Gara captured for torture. A voice thundered, "You are the one who must die." Dark Schneider appeared suddenly. Gara and Ni were stunned to see him alive. Doshi panicked, unable to comprehend Schneider's resurrection. Schneider said nothing and launched a devastating punch into Doshi's face, sending him flying. Schneider turned to face Lynch, mocking his armor and effortlessly dodging its attacks. Schneider raised a finger and cast the spell Exploder, a massive explosion incinerating Lynch on the spot. Schneider landed gracefully, smiling. Ni, still in shock, ran to embrace him, crying uncontrollably. Schneider gently comforted her. Gara approached, questioning how Schneider could be alive. Schneider mocked Gara for being defeated, declaring himself the supremely handsome immortal hero, and that Gara had worried too much. Gara angrily called Schneider a fool for sacrificing his own heart. They returned to the castle and were hailed by the Metallicana populace as saviors. Yoko and Princess Sheila watched from the balcony. Meanwhile, Lars flew over, murmuring to himself, deducing that Schneider's resurrection was no coincidence but aligned with Anthrasax's awakening, triggering dark energy. Lars realized Schneider had not reverted to Lucian as usual but resurrected fully as Dark Schneider. That night, at the victory banquet, Gara was eating voraciously when Sheila came to thank him for saving her. Gara asked if she had seen Schneider and Yoko. In a private room, Schneider was with Ni, complimenting her beauty and beginning to flirt, tearing her clothing and pinning her to the bed. Ni initially resisted but was quickly overcome. Schneider said, "I love you." Ni tearfully confessed she loved him too and apologized for trying to kill him. Schneider smiled, saying he was always willing to sacrifice his heart for her. Meanwhile, Yoko tossed and turned in bed, confused about her feelings, wondering why the scoundrel Schneider, an enemy of women, was so different from Lucian. Suddenly Dark Schneider, dressed as Santa Claus, sneaked into Yoko's room, intending to place the 500 yen coin he owed her into the stocking at the foot of her bed. Yoko awoke in surprise, thinking it was Lucian, and when she realized it was Schneider, she became flustered. Schneider removed his fake beard, revealing that he had come to repay the 500 yen debt. Yoko said money had to be paid with money, but Schneider misunderstood, thinking she wanted him to repay with his body, and lunged at her, only to be knocked away. At the dark altar, Abigail received news of Schneider's resurrection light and Lynch's defeat. He grew furious realizing Schneider had returned to life and deduced that the dark energy from Anthrasax had strengthened him. Call Su approached calmly, noting that the 4 heavenly kings had fractured. Smiling, he remarked that Schneider still had the devil's luck. Abigail roared, vowing to send his next undead army to kill Schneider. In a ruined city, Doshi reported to a new Cyclops warrior. A soldier appeared ready for battle. At Metallicana, Doshi appeared and attacked civilians, grabbing a boy intending to gouge his eyes. Just then Schneider appeared. Doshi assumed he came to negotiate, but Schneider seized Doshi's head and pounded him. The Cyclops monster Vivian emerged. Doshi boasted that Vivian had been implanted with Anthrax's cells. Vivian swung its demonic club. Schneider mocked it, claiming it was millions of times stronger than before, and cast the spell Lightning Cannon, firing a destructive beam that tore Vivian's chest apart. Yet Gaara and Ni arrived, astonished as Vivian's wound regenerated. The monster transformed into a grotesque creature covered with tentacles, roaring. As Vivian continuously regenerated from Dark Schneider's attacks, Doshi laughed maniacally, boasting that Vivian's Anthrax tissue graft granted it extraordinary regenerative powers. On the rooftops, Gaara and Ni realized this was what Abigail had warned about. The deity's power allowed the monster to constantly reshape itself. Schneider mocked Vivian's new grotesque form and prepared to continue the battle. While priests observed the burning city from afar, anxiously calling Lucian's name, Doshi ordered Vivian to strike with its club. The monster charged, smashing the ground. Schneider nimbly dodged. Gaara observed and mumbled, analyzing Schneider's stubborn, selfish, greedy, hot-tempered, domineering, and lustful personality. But Ni interrupted, pointing out that Gaara was equally ferocious, which Gaara admitted. Cornered in the rubble, Schneider angrily soared into the air, declaring that only beautiful people could be immortal. He cast the spell Crash Magnum, summoning enormous pillars of fire and earth from the ground, striking Vivian, seemingly incinerating it. Yet to Gaara and Ni's astonishment, Vivian's body began regenerating again from the remaining tissue. Doshi laughed wildly, praising the power of the destructive god. Schneider ordered Gaara and Ni to fall back, calling them mere supporting characters. Gaara angrily intended to charge, but Ni stopped him. Recognizing Schneider's confidence, Doshi pointed to the glowing club, explaining that it drew energy directly from the ley lines, making it stronger than the fire sword or thunder god sword. Declaring that a single full power strike could destroy the entire city, Vivian swung the energy-charged club, creating a blinding white explosion that engulfed everything. Yoko and Ni screamed Schneider's name in despair. When the smoke cleared, Dark Schneider remained hovering in the air, clutching Doshi's head, mocking him as a fool, explaining that fighting enemies on the ground was safest while airborne. Yoko and the two remaining Heavenly Kings sighed in relief. Schneider crushed Doshi's eyes and turned to Vivian, realizing the monster's body was collapsing. Anthrax's grafted tissue was too powerful, rejecting its host and destroying its nervous system. Ni worried that if Anthrax resurrected, their ideal society would also be destroyed and decided to end the battle. Schneider declared, "I've won," and began chanting a long forbidden spell to summon black fire. Gaara and Ni decided to support him. Ni unleashed the Bai Hong Sword Thunder Strike, while Gaara used the Demon God Sword to distract the enemy. Schneider completed the spell, calling out, "Ozzy, Iomi, Geezer," and unleashed the Dark Sabbath spell, a massive dark explosion engulfing Vivian. Ni was astonished to realize that this was an ancient forbidden spell not recorded in any magic tome. Vivian was completely destroyed. Doshi, still alive, screamed curses at Schneider, but was sucked into a black hole, wailing as he disintegrated, leaving behind a massive, perfectly circular crater in the city center. Yoko ran over in horror at the devastation, and Schneider explained that it was a spell creating a closed superspace field, revealing that he had shifted the air into another dimension, raising temperatures to hundreds of millions of degrees, nullifying all regenerative abilities. Yoko realized this was the forbidden spell only a genius like Schneider could perform, and when Schneider demanded praise, Yoko punched him, calling him cruel for destroying the city. Meanwhile at the Frost Altar, Abigail and Khal Su observed everything. Abigail laughing with delight and impressed that Schneider had sent a tissue-implanted undead straight to the grave. Khal Su acknowledged Schneider's power, which, protected by Gaara and Ni, had exceeded all expectations, yet Abigail revealed they still had a plan to resurrect the strongest of the undead kings, who was sealed in a hidden labyrinth, possessing immense magic and an almost immortal body. In Medalicana, survivors mourned at the crater's edge. Inside the castle, the king and ministers despaired as supplies ran out. Princess Sheila insisted that, despite Schneider's cursed luck, they had no choice but to trust his group to fight Khal Su's undead army. At the same time, Gaara's ninjas discovered a strange dark storm forming to the west. In a dark tomb, Geo examined the demon armor and demon club, two of the three demon artifacts, wondering about the true power of the club and glancing toward the third artifact. In a castle bedroom, Gaara spoke with Ni, teasing her, but Ni said that Darsh had changed, becoming kinder. Gaara asked if she worried about Yoko moving to a village, The villagers saw the black cloud approaching. An elder panicked, recognizing the phenomenon from 50 years ago. The ground began to rot, and a shadow with glowing red eyes appeared, declaring that he had risen from the labyrinth. Back at the castle, Yoko was cleaning Schneider's ears as he rested his head on her lap. Schneider complained, and Yoko scolded him for being childish despite his age. As she chastised him, he deliberately nuzzled her lap, making her scream, warning her that he was the only one protecting the kingdom. Lars called Schneider a scoundrel. Yoko blushed, acknowledging that Schneider was different from Lucian. Schneider asked if she wanted to see Lucian. Just then Gara and Nee entered. Gara scolded Schneider, and Nee called the scene pathetic. Schneider waved it off. Yoko looked out the window and saw the black cloud. At the city gate, a skeletal lick flew forward, claiming to be the transcendent and the truth, warning the guards not to look directly at him or their life force would be drained. He cast the spell Psycho, and unleashed suicidal tendencies, turning all the guards to dust. High Priest Geo explained that the Great Judgment had destroyed the advanced civilization 400 years ago, revealing that human greed had created the destructive god Anthrasax. And after the world was ruined, countless demons and monsters appeared, including undead, among which the most terrifying was the Lick, an immortal undead sustained by dark magic that drained life from humans. Back at Metallicana, as the skeletal Lick appeared at the city gate, Yoko, Lars, and the priests were horrified. Geo confirmed that the main enemy was the legendary Lick Eddie, recounting the tragedy 50 years ago at the Purple Castle, where 4 powerful royal mages had used the forbidden immortality spell to merge soul and body into Eddie, but were later sealed in separate dungeons. Yoko asked about the event 50 years ago, and Geo revealed that a fool had attempted the Megadeth spell in that dungeon, causing a catastrophic explosion, and that fool was the young Dark Schneider, who, along with Kalsu and Abigail, had been preparing the spell in the dungeon. Back in the present, Lick Eddie stood before the city gate, chuckling as he easily raised a massive wall of fire, encircling the entire city and blocking all escape routes for the citizens. On a nearby rooftop, Dark Schneider, Gara, and Arsh's Nee observed, Schneider immediately mocking Eddie's filthy skeletal appearance, while Nee seriously warned him that Eddie was the strongest undead, capable of resisting almost all magic, which Gara confirmed, suspecting that Abigail surely had a plan. Schneider arrogantly laughed and asked Gara if he was afraid of the Lick who had destroyed the Purple. Gara was stunned that Schneider knew about it. Schneider proudly revealed that the explosion 50 years ago had been caused by him while testing Megadeth, declaring that this Lick was unworthy of concern. Continuing his arrogant behavior, he flirted with and groped Nee, reassuring her that he would handle everything. He explained that to defeat Eddie, who was immune to both magic and physical attacks, there was only one way: to use an attack stronger than Eddie's defensive capabilities, proclaiming his philosophy that a handsome hero like him never loses. Gara could only call him a fool as Schneider embraced Nee and kissed her, saying he did not care about the world as long as he was with her. Seeing this, Nee briefly thought of Yoko and wondered if Schneider truly loved that girl. In the streets below, Lick Eddie approached to confront the trio, mocking Schneider as a scoundrel and taunting that he looked thinner after 15 years. Gara realized that Schneider's firewall was weakening. Eddie's cold aura was overpowering the flames. Schneider ignored him and continued to provoke Eddie, calling him an ugly, filthy demon, which enraged the Lick. Eddie attacked, but Schneider stood still without dodging, mocking him as foolish for seeking revenge for a 50-year-old grudge. Angry at being scorned, Eddie snorted in irritation, and Schneider went berserk, declaring that only the beautiful, elegant, and superior like him were allowed such attitudes. Eddie decided to attack, summoning countless spirits, while Schneider countered with his thunder magic spell, non-lightning artillery barrage, but Eddie easily blocked it with the sacred magical shield, Alel Namu Raven. Both Schneider and Gara were astonished to see a Lick capable of using high-level cleric spells. Eddie raised his bony hand, revealing the Satan Ring, the last magical artifact of the legendary 3 demon artifacts. Gara realized in horror that the Lick was boasting that the ring, the most powerful artifact in the world, allowed him to empower allies to overthrow one another. Eddie activated the ring, chanting Gillen Ian, creating an immensely strong black hole in the sky over Metallicana. Schneider immediately tried to fly away, but his magic was insufficient, and he began to be pulled in. Gara and Nee screamed as Eddie mocked Schneider's inability to escape the super-gravity sphere. In a desperate moment, Nee lunged and grabbed Schneider's hand, and both were gradually pulled toward the black hole. Eddie sneered, saying that Schneider's emotions and newfound love had weakened him, reducing him to a weak human who could never defeat the Lick. As all three were nearly pulled in, Gaara shouted at the fool, bravely stabbing his sword into the rooftop for leverage, yelling at Nee to release Schneider or they would all be sucked in. Nee, tears streaming, refused to let go, and Schneider also yelled for her to release him. Gaara realized the situation and told Nee that if she climbed over his body, she could save herself. Eddie mocked Schneider's inability to win, but Nee shouted not to underestimate humanity. Finally, the gravitational pull became too strong. Schneider was completely sucked into the black hole, and Nee followed him. Gaara was thrown back onto the rooftop, exhausted. Meanwhile, Yoko, Lars, and the priests ran to a hatch in the underground chamber. Yoko asked what was happening, and the priests explained that the Demon Club was draining the life force of the city's citizens and channeling it to the Satan Ring. Just as they despaired, a man in armor appeared. Lars recognized in horror that it was one of the four heavenly kings, the prophet of the clear world. Abigail right at the moment Dark Schneider and Arsh's knee were being sucked into the black hole created by Lick Eddie. On the rooftop, Gaara watched in horror as the black hole gradually closed, while his ninja troops reported the situation. But Gaara, believing that Schneider and Nee were dead, muttered only fools. Lick, wearing the Satan ring, mocked Gaara and prepared to leave, but Gaara stood up to block his path. Meanwhile, at Metallicana Castle, the ministers panicked, screaming and crying that Schneider had been killed and the kingdom was about to be destroyed. High Priest Geo tried to stay calm and analyze the situation, while Princess Sheila appeared to reassure everyone, recalling all the times Schneider had won despite dire circumstances, expressing absolute faith that he would triumph this time as well, clutching the last sealing necklace tightly. In a dark underground chamber beneath the castle, Yoko, Lars, and the mages guarded the glowing demon club, when suddenly one of the four heavenly kings, Abigail, appeared, introducing himself as the prophet of the clear world. Abigail smiled and explained the legendary three demon artifacts: the demon armor, the demon club, and the Satan ring. He revealed that the demon club was draining the life force of all Metallicana citizens and channeling it to the Satan ring worn by Lick, granting the undead near limitless power. He claimed that Schneider had been transported to another dimension and was dead. Yoko screamed, refusing to believe it, crying and shouting that Schneider could not die, that he was the hero of the story and would surely return, which Abigail found amusing. Outside the city, the firewall created by Schneider still burned. Gaara confronted Lick, pointing at the flames, declaring that as long as Schneider's magic persisted, it meant he was still alive even if trapped in another dimension. Lick acknowledged this but mocked that the space lacked air, water, or light, so Schneider would slowly die. Determined to save his friend, Gaara vowed to defeat Lick and use the Satan ring to reopen the spatial gate. Drawing his demonic sword Mirasame, he ignored his ninja troops' protests. They knew Lick was invincible, but Gaara launched the fastest strike he had, the demonic sword's lightning foot technique. Lick stood still without dodging, raising his hand to cast a high-level defensive spell, producing a massive blue energy explosion that sent Gaara flying, severely injured. Inside the castle, Geo sensed Gaara's failure. Lick explained why he was invincible. His body existed simultaneously in both the physical and astral realms, while Gaara's Mirasame could only cut the physical plane. Gaara realized that Schneider had been defeated for the same reason. Loyal ninjas surrounded Gaara, ready to die to protect their master, as one recounted the legend of Mirasame, a weapon that could destroy true magic, but at the cost of draining the user's life force. Knowing his life was short, Gaara decided to sacrifice himself, channeling all remaining energy and activating the sword's ultimate power, the Demon Icial Slash. A massive pure energy wave, rotting demon annihilation, erupted from the blade. Lick, horrified, realized this attack could cut through both dimensions. His body was sliced and pushed against the wall. Exhausted, Gaara collapsed. Lick, furious at being unable to absorb Gaara's soul, prepared to attack the ninja as the firewall dimmed and the black hole began closing, believing Schneider and Nee were dead. Suddenly, the black hole reopened, and Dark Schneider, carrying Arsh's knee, fell from the sky, landing safely. Lick and the ninja were stunned. Schneider explained that while drifting in another dimension, he had used magic to locate and summon the two divine swords, the Fire Sword and the Thunder Sword, which had been destroyed and cast into that space during his battle with Nee. Their guardian spirits, Efreet and Nu, appeared, creating a protective barrier and paving the way for their return. Gada, still barely conscious, called Schneider a fool, and Schneider mockingly rebuked him for being slow. Schneider faced Lick, who was absorbing energy from the black hole, and declared that he was now 100 times stronger. He revealed Khal Su's scheme. Khal Su had deliberately allowed Abigail to hand the Satan ring to Lick, knowing that Schneider would seize it, intending for Schneider to wield the ring's power and uncover a force even greater than Anthrasax. Schneider cast the venom spell, incinerating Lick, but the undead merely laughed, claiming Schneider could not harm him. Schneider then annihilated him completely, and everyone cheered in victory, unaware that the Satan ring had flown somewhere. Suddenly, the Satan ring reappeared before Abigail, who was horrified, realizing this meant Lick Eddie, stronger than him and the ring's previous wielder, had been defeated. Yoko warned him that his evil plan had failed and he should give up, but Abigail dismissed her, calling Lick useless. Concluding that he no longer needed to give the ring to Lick, Abigail felt content, now holding all 3 of the legendary demon artifacts. His armor began to glow, resonating with the demon club, and he smiled, marveling at the coincidence. Soldiers charged forward, but Yoko shouted, recognizing him as Abigail of the 4 Heavenly Kings. Abigail smiled and warned them to get out of his way or die. When a soldier cursed and ordered him restrained, Abigail used his armor's tentacles to brutally slaughter all the soldiers in an instant. Horrified, Yoko told Lars to close the door, but Abigail blocked the way, throwing Yoko to the ground and ordering her to go to the top floor, where Princess Sheila and the final seal were located. At that moment, Ni appeared, calling Abigail's name and declaring she had business with him. Lars, terrified, realized that 2 of the 4 Heavenly Kings, the Prophet of the Clear World and the Dark Mage hybrid, were about to face each other. Yoko worried for Ni, but Ni told her to step back to avoid injury. Abigail mocked her, asking if she had come to avenge the accused spell he had placed on her, ridiculing her for having accepted the curse to prove loyalty, claiming her anger was pointless, especially since she had abandoned her duty and betrayed them. Ni coldly replied that she was not here out of past hatred. Abigail was surprised as Ni reflected, recalling the moment Schneider had sacrificed his life to demonstrate boundless love for her. That feeling had filled her heart, and she realized that the present-day Schneider was different from 15 years ago, as though a childlike innocence still resided within him, and what now drove her was her love for Darsh. Yoko, standing nearby, shared the same thoughts about her love for Lucian. Abigail, hearing Ni's words, laughed, calling the concept of love ridiculous and shameful. Ni declared she was in a hurry and had no time for a failure like him, insisting she would use force to make him answer her questions. She concentrated a massive surge of lightning magic. Abigail warned her that her lightning was no longer strong enough to defeat him, but Ni ignored him, chanting Zia FKs and summoning the Lightning Emperor, shouting for Abigail to witness its power. A colossal lightning bolt struck him directly, causing a devastating explosion that shook the entire castle. On the city walls, High Priest Geo sensed the terrifying energy of the lightning. In the throne room, Princess Sheila and the ministers panicked at the blast, while a soldier frantically reported a massive explosion below in the dungeons, confirming that Abigail had broken in and was fighting Arsh's Ni. The ministers grew even more fearful, and Knight Bon Jovina doubted Ni's loyalty, warning the king that she had once been an enemy. Back in the dungeon, Ni panted, her arms bleeding from overusing the spell, while Yoko and Lars watched in awe at the destructive power. Yet Abigail emerged unscathed from the rubble, explaining that his demon armor functioned as a lightning rod, rendering Ni's attack useless. He mocked her, saying that without lightning, Ni was just an ordinary woman. Desperate, Ni wondered how she could kill him, but then she gritted her teeth, called Abigail an idiot, and declared that he had yet to see the true power of the Lightning Emperor. Abigail realized Ni was shifting to wind magic, linking with the elemental spirits of the wind. Ni unleashed the heavenly dragon gale, creating a fierce tornado. Lars explained that this vortex was stronger than 15 years ago, capable of cutting through stone and tearing humans apart. Abigail was trapped, forced to anchor himself with his armor's tentacles. Ni shouted for him to answer, warning that he would die if he didn't. Meanwhile, in the throne room, soldiers reported on the battle, and Bon Jovina again expressed doubts about Ni's loyalty. Suddenly, Dark Schneider and Gara appeared. Schneider, holding a bowl of ramen, mocked Bon Jovina, saying that he himself was not to be trusted, then poured the ramen over the knight's head. He scolded the elders not to forget that their future depended on him. Princess Sheila and Gio entered. Sheila apologized for Schneider's rudeness, and he immediately hugged her, pulling her onto the sofa while mocking Bon Giovanna as a jealous old man. Gio thanked Schneider and Gara for saving the kingdom, but Schneider brushed it off, claiming the kingdom would eventually be his. He turned to Sheila, asking about the secret of the final seal, commenting that women who easily trust men are foolish, but women who refuse help from a handsome man are even more foolish. Understanding his meaning, Sheila touched her necklace, preparing to reveal the secret. Back in the dungeon, Abigail emerged from the tornado, injured but smiling. He acknowledged the tornado's power but roared in anger, claiming Ni had committed a grave offense by daring to wound him, calling it a betrayal against the destructive god Anthrasax. Ni, hearing this, asserted that Anthrasax was the true enemy and that she would not stop until the god was destroyed. She accused Abigail of deceiving the 4 heavenly kings to resurrect a demon. Abigail smiled wickedly and asked, "So what if it's true?" Enraged, Ni declared she would kill him. She summoned the lightning beast Nu, leaving Abigail horrified, questioning how it could still exist. Ni activated the spirit sword transformation, and Nu transformed into the legendary thunder god sword, flying into her hands. At Metallicana Castle, Dark Schneider, Gara, High Priest Gio, and Bon Giovanna listened as Princess Sheila explained that the royal families of the 4 kingdoms, including Metallicana, had the oldest bloodlines on the continent and were tasked with guarding the 4 seals restraining the destructive god. This duty had shaped the formation of the royal families. Schneider asked about the final seal, and Sheila confirmed that the necklace she wore was a keepsake of her late mother. He wondered why she often touched it, but she brushed it off as a habit. Sheila then revealed that the true seal was hidden even more secretly inside her own body. Gio and the ministers were horrified, unable to comprehend this. Sheila admitted that although the fate of the world depended on it, the burden was overwhelming. Schneider gazed at Sheila, who radiated a faint spiritual light, recalling her past actions, the kiss that freed him from Lucian, her determination to accompany him to the Valley of Graves, and her embarrassment at his teasing. He told himself he owed her nothing, but then remembered her courage when she volunteered to rescue Yoko, and he turned to Sheila, who was crying, promising to protect her. Back in the dungeon, Ni pointed the thunder god sword at Abigail, demanding he answer. She asked whether, if he could not control Anthrasax, the Mage Kingdom and the ideal society he promised were nothing but lies to deceive them. Hidden in the shadows nearby, Yoko recalled Gara wondering what would happen if there were a way to control the destructive god. Yoko, hiding with Lars, realized that if Anthrasax could not be controlled, the world was certain to be destroyed. Abigail confirmed that he would indeed resurrect Anthrasax, calling Ni a foolish mortal, stating that his god was not merciless, and that now she would face divine punishment. He activated the power of all 3 legendary demonic artifacts: the demon armor, the devil's mace, and the Satan ring. The 3 dark relics flared violently, resonating with one another. Abigail began chanting a long incantation as the black tentacles of the demon armor extended, merging with the mace and the Satan ring to envelop his body. Abigail roared in pain as his form transformed, merging with the dark relics into a colossal mechanical golem. He declared his new form as Omega Abigail, the supreme dark magus. Ni, Yoko, and Lars stared in horror at the monstrous creature. Lars explained that this form absorbed immense energy from the ley lines and human life force, controlling darkness, nullifying all magic, and being harder than any sword. Abigail's face was now pressed upside down within the golem's chest, screaming that this punishment would certainly lead to death, and that Ni was unworthy of hearing his true name. Yoko shouted for Ni to run, but Ni ordered Yoko to hold on tightly. Abigail unleashed his Abigail cannon, attacking the surroundings, generating extreme heat, and claiming escape was useless. Ni realized her sword was ineffective. She grabbed Yoko and Lars, flying to a more advantageous location. Meanwhile, on the castle balcony, Bon Giovanna and the soldiers received reports that Abigail had merged the 3 relics and transformed into a monster. Omega Abigail smashed through a wall and landed in the outer courtyard. The ministers on the balcony looked down in horror. Bon Giovanna realized that only beings infused with darkness could wield such relics. They would consume flesh and soul alike. Sheila confirmed this was a deathly dark entity. Yoko and Ni landed nearby. Abigail mocked Ni for trying to run. Ni immediately attacked with her lightning emperor sword, but the blade only sparked against the armor. She realized that the thunder god's sword could not scratch it. The golem counterattacked, but Ni dodged and focused all her strength, unleashing the super ballistic lightning strike. The golem easily blocked it with one hand. Ni despaired, wondering how she could ever dominate the world with Anthrasax's power if it only destroyed everything. Then she shouted, commanding Abigail to die. The golem grabbed Ni. Abigail mocked her naive ideals, revealing that his true ambition was even greater. Total annihilation, a sacred mission inherited from the old world. He asked Ni if she knew his true identity and declared it was time for her to die, tightening his grip. At that moment, Dark Schneider appeared, standing atop his own colossal dark golem. Ni and Yoko exhaled in relief. From the balcony, the ministers cheered. Schneider stood on the golem, mocking Abigail, asking what he thought he was doing daring to touch his precious girl with filthy hands. Abigail froze, realizing Schneider's golem. Schneider taunted that he was fighting poison with poison. Gara and the knights watched from afar. Ni warned Schneider that Abigail now wielded both sword and magic, but Schneider dismissed it. Schneider's golem lunged, delivering a powerful punch that staggered Omega Abigail. Abigail roared in anger, realizing the only weak point of this supreme body was his exposed face. Schneider confirmed he knew and asked Abigail if he was impressed by his genius. Abigail called Schneider dangerous and swore to crush him to achieve his ambition. Abigail then used Ni as leverage. Schneider sensed that she was exhausted and suddenly knelt before Omega Abigail, declaring defeat and begging Abigail to spare Ni, saying that she was more important than his own life. Ni, held in the golem's grasp, shed tears. Abigail mockingly decided to spare her life and make her his consort. Hearing this, Schneider immediately flew into a rage, calling Abigail a fool, charging forward, and rescuing Ni from the golem's hand, lifting her up. Yoko observed that Schneider seemed very happy. Ni, in Schneider's arms, realized he was fighting for her. Yoko wondered if Schneider would ever look at Lucian that way. Schneider landed, carrying Ni in a princess-style hold, asking if she was okay. She confirmed that her armor had protected her, and Ni realized that their bond was stronger than anything else. Yoko painfully realized that for Ni, Schneider was more than just a father figure. Abigail roared that Schneider's act of rescue was cheating, but Schneider, still holding Ni, mockingly replied that in war, victory is what matters most. He declared that whoever defeats their opponent first is the true victor, the rule of all battles. From the city wall, Knight Bon Jovina shouted, calling Schneider shameless and claiming a knight must fight with honor. Schneider ignored him, continuing to flirt with Ni, asking where it hurt so he could massage her. Bon Jovina angrily lectured that when the enemy fights dirty, a true knight must fight fair, and that winning in Schneider's way was shameful. Men must awaken to love and justice. Schneider shouted back that if the enemy fought dirty, he would fight dirtier, declaring his philosophy: a man must win at all costs in battle. Failure is worthless, especially if it means failing to protect the girls. He ordered his golem to attack, and the two giant golems clashed. Omega Abigail unleashed an energy strike that sent Schneider flying, yet his golem remained unscathed. Gara and the soldiers on the wall were astonished. Despite being injured and bleeding, Schneider realized something. Ni warned him that normal magic was useless against that body. Schneider confirmed, deducing that the armor was created with ancient world magic, like the destroyer god Anthrasax. Abigail praised Schneider's intelligence, noting he was more difficult to deal with than the other four heavenly kings. Abigail ordered Schneider to kneel and swear loyalty, promising to share his power. Schneider resolutely refused. Abigail declared that if so, Schneider must die. He leaped high and slammed into the ground, creating a massive explosion, boasting the power of evil and mocking Schneider's helplessness. The ministers on the balcony panicked, believing Schneider dead and the world on the brink of destruction. Sheila and Yoko screamed Schneider and Lucian's names. But through the smoke, Schneider emerged, asking Abigail if that was his full dark power. Schneider declared the joke over and that he would show Abigail the cruelest dark magic. He flew upward, beginning to chant the Halloween spell. Gara and Yoko realized it was a type of dark entity. Ni shouted to stop him, warning that Abigail was waiting to counterattack, but Schneider ignored her, continuing to summon the Dark Dukes and Kings of Evil. Schneider unleashed the Edzapelian spell, a massive dark sphere enveloping Omega Abigail. from which countless tentacles and dark creatures surged forth, gnawing and corroding the demon armor. Schneider laughed maniacally, explaining he had summoned hungry fiends from hell that would devour anything. Gara realized that only infernal beings could destroy the dark relics. Abigail screamed in agony as the creatures gnawed at him. At that moment, a massive lightning strike appeared at the Anthrasax altar. The priests sensed the dark god stirring. On the balcony, Princess Sheila suddenly collapsed, screaming in pain and heat as if her body would burst. Geo and Bon Jovana realized the fourth seal within Sheila was breaking. The dark god's energy shattered the Ed Zeppelian sphere, and the golem emerged, completely unharmed. Schneider, exhausted from the attack, was struck by the golem and sent crashing to the ground. Ni, Gara, and Yoko watched in horror as Schneider lay motionless. Abigail laughed, declaring Schneider's legendary invincibility over, and that now he could create hell. He announced his next target, Princess Sheila, to seize the final seal. Yoko and Lars realized that the seal was Sheila herself. The Omega Golem began climbing the city wall. Sheila, barely conscious, called Schneider's name, begging him to protect the world. Schneider's body began to glow. He slowly stood, his wounds healed. Abigail froze in shock. Schneider declared that this world did not exist for others to do as they pleased, but existed for him alone. He roared, beginning the true Halloween spell, summoning 7 keys and opening the gates of hell. Bon Jovana realized that this was Schneider's most powerful magic and shouted for him to stop. Schneider unleashed Halloween, a massive explosion of light and fire that completely engulfed the Omega Golem and destroyed a large portion of the castle. Geo was shocked, realizing the spell had failed. The Omega Abigail Golem, though damaged, still stood, and from its chest, Abigail's inverted face laughed, explaining that his armor had an absolute magical protection field capable of blocking even the dark energy of the Destroyer God, absorbing unlimited external magic and nullifying all enemy spells. He declared himself invincible. In the midst of everyone's despair, Ni suddenly appeared on the city wall, declaring that no defensive magic was absolute. As long as a strike could surpass it, the armor would shatter. To the astonishment of Gara, Yoko, and Abigail himself, Ni began chanting the Halloween spell, exactly as Dark Schneider had done. Gara realized they were coordinating a dual Halloween spell attack. Ni explained that the heat generated from this second attack would surpass even the Dark Sabbath spell, and she believed this power was enough to destroy the unified dark relics forming the golem. Determined to kill Abigail at any cost, even borrowing Schneider's power, she unleashed the spell, and a second massive stream of energy struck the golem, forming a destructive pillar of light shooting into the sky. When the light faded, Ni collapsed onto the rubble, exhausted. As the smoke cleared, the Omega Abigail Golem still stood, though its outer armor had been destroyed. From within the smoke, its true form was revealed, a colossal, grotesque creature covered in dark ancient runes. Abigail laughed maniacally, mocking their attempt to stop the resurrection of a god. Gara was horrified to see it withstand 2 super spells. Ni explained that the creature's entire body was covered in anti-magic talismans, rendering both sword and spell useless. Abigail gloated over Schneider lying in a pool of blood, mocking that Schneider had grown weak by siding with good and being blinded by love, declaring that today marked the end of Schneider's legendary status. The golem roared, proclaiming this as the day of destruction and the birth of a new hell. In the castle, Geo realized that the dark energy from the battle was affecting the seal within Princess Sheila, causing her to faint. In a spiritual space, Sheila pleaded with Schneider, saying he was the only one who could save the world. Hearing her plea, Schneider, though heavily injured, began to stand, his body burning with a dark aura as his wounds slowly healed. He roared in fury. Ni, witnessing this, cried, recalling the past when Schneider had asked her to flee with him, admitting her love for him. Abigail continued to mock Schneider, claiming that having abandoned his dark nature, he could not defeat the embodiment of absolute evil, now part of the destroyer god Anthrasax. He ordered Schneider and everyone else to disappear. Ni and Yoko screamed, begging him not to kill Schneider. Yoko ran forward, desperately promising her first offering or anything else if Schneider won, pleading for him not to lose. Schneider, now enveloped in deep red energy, discarded all concepts of good and evil, declaring them meaningless to him. He said he only cared about defeating Abigail and ordered his enemy to die. He began chanting a new spell, the Blood Covenant from Abaddon, summoning the flames of Gehenna. Gara and Geo recognized the spell, but Gara shouted that magic was useless. Abigail called Schneider a fool and ordered the golem to fire a destructive lightning beam. Schneider roared, charging forward and chanting the Exodus spell. He transformed into a blazing meteor, crashing directly into the golem's lightning stream. Inside the collision, Schneider told Abigail that while the golem's armor might be perfect, other components were not. Abigail roared, calling Schneider insane, and Schneider pierced through the golem's chest. The golem exploded from within, completely disintegrating. After the explosion, Schneider smiled as his body dissolved into light and blood. The black clouds in the sky dispersed, and sunlight poured down. Geo wept, realizing the seal had been protected, while the people and soldiers in the castle cheered for victory. However, on the battlefield, Gara and Ni stood in silence, staring at Schneider, who seemed to have sacrificed himself. Yoko stepped forward, and Ni ran to Schneider's fallen form, screaming and begging him not to die and not to leave her behind. Yoko stood by, recalling all her memories with Schneider and Lucian. At that moment, Schneider appeared behind Yoko, smiling and crying. Gara asked if he was crying, and Schneider lamented that he had missed the chance to be with Yoko that night after she had promised him her first time, crying in sorrow. A rock fell on his head, and Yoko, realizing she had been tricked, shouted in anger that he should have died with Abigail. Dee transformed into his dog form to apologize hurriedly. Gara smiled, realizing something. The person who now understood Schneider best was Yoko. Blushing, Yoko was suddenly seized by tentacles that shot up from the ground. Abigail appeared from the dust, smiling. Schneider roared at Abigail, who had captured Yoko. Abigail praised Schneider as terrifying, holding Yoko with his tentacles and telling Schneider that he no longer had a chance to win. He analyzed the situation, pointing out that Ni had several broken ribs and depleted magic, while Gara was severely injured in his internal organs after the battle with Lick. Both were barely standing. Abigail then revealed Schneider's greatest weakness, Yoko, the one both Schneider and her host Lucian loved. While speaking, Abigail used tentacles to strip Yoko completely naked and suspend her in the air. Schneider roared in fury, and Abigail immediately fired a red energy beam through Schneider's chest. Abigail ordered Gara not to move, then turned to Schneider, asking if he was worried about the girl, mocking Yoko's screams as wonderful. Despite being naked and captured, Yoko shouted for Schneider not to worry about her and to fight, yelling that Abigail had exhausted himself controlling the golem and himself, making this their only chance to defeat him. From the castle balcony, Geo and the ministers watched. Yoko continued to scream, pleading for Lucian and Schneider to fight. Abigail noted that Yoko was the only one who fully understood the situation. He monologued that the Schneider of the past would have attacked without hesitation, but now he had the human weakness of love. Abigail asked what Schneider would do, while Gara realized Abigail was right. The current Schneider could not abandon Yoko. Abigail mocked this love as foolish, binding, and making humans weak, declaring that Schneider was no longer the legendary mage, but just a foolish man. He ordered Yoko to continue screaming and writhing in pain to serve as a sacrifice for the destroyer god. Schneider lay on the ground calling Yoko's name. Abigail mocked him and prepared to unleash a second Kongba slash to finish Schneider. But as the red light surged, two figures suddenly appeared and blocked the attack. Sean Ari, using talisman spiders to create a shield, and Kai Harn. Abigail was surprised to see them. Sean Ari, holding his talismans, apologized to Ni for arriving late, confirming he was there to protect her. Gara realized that all three members of the Demon Path trio had gathered. Kai immediately launched an attack on Abigail with the sword art, Demon Strike 100 Sever, but Abigail easily dodged. Ni shouted that the situation had changed. Abigail sneered, saying he had used almost all his magic to control the tri-demonic artifacts, but the armor he wore contained cells from the destroyer god Anthrasax, allowing it to absorb unlimited energy. Abigail activated his power, using the Satan Ring to summon an army of skeletal zombies from the ground. Lars and those in the castle were horrified at the massive army. Abigail ordered the army to advance, destroying all living things in the castle and turning them into offerings for Anthrasax, but not touching Princess Sheila, as he needed the final seal. The heroes immediately charged into the chaotic battle. Garda used the demon god's kick sword, Kai wielded the dragon spear, Fatal Strike. Ni unleashed the lightning god sword, releasing the Emperor Lightning Sword Strike, and Sean Ari summoned talisman spiders to devour the dead. Bon Jovian also led the Royal Knights and Gaara's ninja troops into the fray. Abigail observed, mocking them, claiming that no reinforcements would matter. He then decided to activate the super undead fusion. The Satan ring glowed, and the entire skeletal army on the battlefield dissolved into a black sludge, which quickly reformed into a massive golem composed of hundreds of skeletons and skulls, wielding 2 giant swords. The golem declared itself a fusion of valiant knights and the undead, stronger than before. Gaara and Ni coordinated their attacks. Gaara using the demon god's kick sword, Ni summoning lightning spirits, merging into a massive thunder explosion striking the golem. Yet the skeletal golem remained standing. Gaara checked on Ni, confirming she was exhausted. Abigail laughed mockingly, declaring it was his turn to attack. Gaara hurried to shield Ni, and Kai protected Yoko. In a faint spiritual space, Schneider awoke and saw Lucien Renlin's spirit. Lucien told Schneider he could not die yet. He had to protect Metallicana, prevent the seal within Princess Sheila from being broken, and protect their injured friends and the girl they loved. Lucien reached out, pleading for Schneider to protect them all. Schneider turned away, asking why he should care about the world or love, declaring that the world and all beautiful women belonged to him. Lucien sadly said that Schneider was making him look like a fool. Hearing this, Schneider immediately roared in anger, blaming the bastard Abigail and declaring he would kill him. Schneider rose on the battlefield, furious. Sean Ari rejoiced at his survival. Schneider saw Yoko, Kai, Gaara, and Ni exhausted, and declared he would handle Abigail alone. He slowly stood, his body ablaze with radiant fire, and Sean Ari noticed fire spirits concentrating around him. Abigail was stunned, wondering how Schneider still had strength. He saw an illusion of the destroyer god Anthrasax, realizing the evil god's energy resonated with Schneider. Schneider's revival was no coincidence. It was caused by Anthrasax's awakening evil energy affecting him. Gaara deduced that Anthrasax had the strongest influence over those connected to darkness, which was Schneider. Abigail, facing Schneider and the skeletal golem, confirmed this, further explaining that 15 years ago, after Schneider had been defeated by Prince Lars, he had used a reincarnation spell just before dying, but the Grand Priest Gionodo Soto had sealed his soul, which was that of an infant, into Lucien Renlin's body. Abigail lamented that although the seal had now been broken, Schneider was no longer the pure evil he had been 15 years ago, as Lucien had infused him with love and a human heart. Abigail complained about the cruel irony, but Schneider roared, telling Abigail to talk less, declaring that it was his job, as a ruthless, undefeated, handsome hero, to annihilate him. He smiled, saying this was the cruelest plan he had executed. When the skeletal golem swung its sword to attack, Schneider blocked the giant blade with one hand, astonishing everyone. Sean Ari realized Schneider had used a defensive barrier. Schneider taunted Abigail, enraged that a junior like him dared to defy him, and began chanting a spell. Gaara recognized it immediately, while Abigail ordered the golem to block. As the skeletal golem raised its sword, a fire sword suddenly flew in, striking the golem itself. Efreet roared, Hellion, and unleashed fire. Simultaneously, Schneider completed his spell, summoned 7 keys, opened the gates of hell, and shouted, Halloween! A blazing column of golden lightning shot directly at the golem. Gaara and Ni were astonished, realizing this attack was even stronger than when Schneider had fought Ni. The golem transformed into a giant skull-shaped shield, blocking the Halloween attack. Abigail stood inside, mocking, noting that Schneider's regenerative ability was even stronger. But Schneider roared the second spell, Exodus. Gaara was stunned as Schneider used Halloween and Exodus simultaneously. Schneider became a fireball, charging forward, roaring that the golem stood in his way, and pierced through it, causing a devastating explosion. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Schneider landed, Abigail stood before his undead army, and Schneider summoned Tafala, wiping out the entire skeletal army. Abigail tried to retreat, but Schneider lunged, grabbed him, and delivered a barrage of punches to his face. Yoko, Ni, Gaara, and Sean Ari all smiled, and everyone on the castle balcony cheered their victory. However, Abigail murmured naively, revealing that when escaping the Omega Golem, he had brought the Satan ring, now charged to 120% by the Destroyer God. He activated the ring and summoned a horde of dark beasts. But Schneider thrust a blazing sword, pinning Abigail to the castle wall, causing him to scream in pain. Schneider declared he had said he would kill Abigail. While everyone on the balcony cheered and Sheila thanked Schneider, his body suddenly collapsed, dissolving into light and blood, his magic entirely drained. Gara and Ni were horrified. Yoko and Sean Ari screamed for Lucian, and Yoko rushed to support Schneider in his final moments, begging him to get up. Schneider smiled, whispering that he loved her, and that both he and Lucian Renlin loved Tia Noto Yoko. Then he closed his eyes. Yoko screamed in despair, holding his body, pleading for him to open his eyes. Gara, Ni, and Sheila were also stunned in pain. Yoko angrily scolded Schneider, asking what he was thinking. Suddenly, Schneider opened his eyes, asking if he deserved a reward. Everyone realized they had been tricked. Yoko began arguing with Schneider about his first promise and pinched his cheek. Both smiled, and Yoko admitted he was the undefeated sorcerer. Suddenly, Abigail spoke. Schneider was shocked that Abigail was still alive. Abigail said Schneider's magic was depleted and prepared a red energy sphere. Schneider shouted, "Yoko!" Yoko immediately stood, spreading her arms to shield Schneider. Abigail smiled, saying that if she wanted to atone alongside Schneider, he would make it happen. Yoko suddenly lunged, pushing him off a cliff along with herself. Both fell into the sea, screaming Yoko's name. Abigail landed on a sharp rooftop and was pierced through. At the same time, black tentacles erupted from Abigail's demon armor, restraining him, and he screamed as the tentacles tore his body apart, flaying his skin, revealing his true monstrous form inside. The sky darkened, and a massive explosion of light engulfed the castle, swallowing Bon Javana and the ministers. Sheila screamed. Ni flew to embrace Schneider as both were consumed by the light. In a spiritual space, Schneider called for Yoko, and Yoko drifted through the universe as Schneider appeared, holding her, with Lucian's smiling image visible. A massive destructive explosion occurred. The Metallicana castle was reported fallen. At the Anthrasax altar, Kal Su and his subordinates stood before the evil god's heart. Subordinates reported Abigail's death, and Kal Su remarked that the evil god was about to slumber, wondering what Schneider was dreaming of after being displaced by the explosion. Near the Alan-made border, at a hidden samurai mansion, a lord and samurai discussed the disappearance of everyone from Metallicana. A guard reported an intruder. 2 samurai ran to the door and were horrified to see Yoko, covered in blood, holding Lucian. Yoko desperately begged them to save Lucian. Part 1 ends here. Goodbye.